My name is Marie White, and I'm a writer. And I have this book right here, Strength for Parents of Missing Children.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a missing child. And that's why I decided to write this book, because there was no guidebook for anybody like us.
Oh, so how long has your child been missing? Tell us about your child first.
They've been missing for 3 years.
Mm.
And when I use the term missing child on the book, I really wanted it to encompass a lot of different types of missing children. Not everybody who has a missing child has someone that's been abducted off the street or, been kidnapped from their bedroom. There are people that have that happen, but there are more missing children from something like a bad divorce, and the, father or mother will take the child and move to another country. And then the other parent can't find them, and they're hiring private detectives and trying to do that. So parental abduction like that is very common. Even in the US here, we have a lot of families where they have a divorce, it's a messy divorce, and they may even be in the same city and they can't ever see their children again.
Wow. Is that what happened with your situation?
Our situation is still ongoing, so we can't really talk too much about it because it's still an ongoing case.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, really, regardless of the reason that a family loses a child, the pain is all the same. I mean, even parents that have children that's run away have been taken into foster care illegally for
Mm.
no fault of their own.
Mm.
Medical kidnapping. Sometimes people will go get a second opinion for their child because they've been diagnosed with cancer, and the doctors will turn them in and say, well, they're not getting the treatment that I requested of them. And then
Mm.
they get the child taken and put into foster care. And
Mm.
also parents that have children who are addicted to drugs and, are they're alive, but they don't know where they are, or they're in rehab. They're basically missing from their lives. All of us have missing children.
Mm. And when did you start writing this book? What was the catalyst that made you decide, okay, I'm going to put pen to paper and write something?
Really, I have 5 books out that have all come out in the last 3 years since our child was taken.
Mm.
And in that time, I have written all these books against my will. I felt like I
Mm.
don't want to write, I don't want to do this, and yet I feel like there's a message that needs to be shared. And in this book, I probably started about 2 years ago, and it was just one of those where there is no guidebook. There was nothing for us, and we had to find it all on our own at a time when we were at the top of our stress. Our bodies were going crazy with cortisol and adrenaline, and then we had to go investigate how to take care of ourselves, and then how to, try and find our child and go through all this at a time when our minds were just, completely overwhelmed and stressed. So there was nothing like this. There needed to be something like this.
So is this a self-care book, or is this a book about the legal process, or drill down for me sort of what exactly is someone going to learn from your book?
Well, it's a step-by-step guide
Mm-hmm.
to take you through from the moment your child is missing from your life
Mm.
and to the end when they are reunited with you, if that is what in fact does happen. So not only did I write, like part of it is how to get through from day one, but then I also interviewed all of these experts that are able to go in and say, well, when reunification happens, this is what, how you can make that transition once the child is back home. Or this is how you can deal with the grief during the process, because the grief, like nothing else. It's not like a grief of a death because it's not over. You wait
Right,
every day to find out if your child's coming home.
right.
So all of those experts talk in there. I interview each of them, and they're in the back of the book. So that is a lot of self-care during the process. I take you through, and I had to go relive in my own mind to write it from day one.
Mm-hmm.
What did we need? What did we feel? And what would we have want to have heard? And that we had to find out later on our own. Like, what do we eat to keep up our energy and our mental focus? How do we keep our bodies from deteriorating from the stress? So it's really kind of an inspirational and self-help at the same time.
Mm. And what books helped you when you were at first going through your journey of the stress of losing a child?
I think James McDonald's book, When Life is Hard,
Mm.
the title says it all because
Mm-hmm.
life
Mm-hmm.
was really hard. And it was one of those books, like I want this book to be, which is just something that you just grab and you just voraciously read as fast as you can, trying to find anything that will help you get through the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a great one. The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom, reading about somebody living through Nazi Germany, and that whole event helped me put in perspective, this is horrible, but could be a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, that really helped me to find joy in the process. And even when God doesn't make sense, that was really helpful too, to kind of realize, bad things happen to people that don't deserve it. I mean, nobody's perfect, but there are things that are way beyond cause and effect.
Mm-hmm. What
So
would you suggest to a friend or a family member who knows someone who's going through losing a child or a child who's missing? What do you say
that's a
to
great
them?
question.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a great question. I actually cover that in the book and talk about if I could go back in time, this is the letter I would have written. And it's just a short paragraph that says, come up to us and tell us things like, I'm praying for you, or send us a card, a note, even a text or an email that says, hey, I'm praying for your child, or I was thinking about you today, or, some flowers, something that just says, I'm thinking about you and encourages them. Because really, when we're going through it, we don't know what we need. We are
Mm-hmm.
so overwhelmed, and our minds are just constantly processing, how do I get my child back? What do I do now? Do I call the investigator? Do I do this? Do I leave the house? Do I not leave the house? I mean, it's unbelievable amount of stress. So
Mm.
just knowing you're there is really more than enough.
What do you think of, because I'm a person who watches a lot of, I don't have cable anymore, but when I had cable, I used to watch a lot of the Dateline shows and investigative report shows 2020. Do they help people or are they just entertainment? Um, I don't know what would be the end goal for the sake of we all know bad things happen to people in this world and
Yes.
is it just satisfying our curiosity or do they really truly help families reunite with their loved ones?
I would say those are helpful before it happens to you.
Oh.
Because when it happens to you, those things will cause a PTSD reaction
Mm.
to parents who are undergoing constant stress. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they define trauma as something ongoing and unpredictable. And having a missing child and not knowing if they're okay, what's happening to them, imagining in your mind, what could be happening to your child right now. Are they still alive? Are they not? Watching programs like that in the midst of it
Mm-hmm.
we can't do it. Most of us cannot do it. It just causes too much stress. And it causes us to have a visceral reaction because we are living it.
Mm-hmm.
So we end up reliving it with them. But before that happens, and for people around us, it's great to watch because then you have an idea of the situations that can cause this to happen. And you
Mm-hmm.
also can see some of the good and the bad outcomes. Just
Mm-hmm.
don't ever tell the people, they're probably not going to come home or that's
Mm.
probably bad outcomes going to happen. You would be surprised how many people will actually walk up to us and other parents and tell them that.
Wow. So how do you handle a situation like that when somebody inserts their opinion and it's not helpful to you? What do you do?
Well, one of the things that we definitely learned on this journey, and God was good to us because, in our own self, I would have just reacted, how I felt in that moment. But I really felt like He just gave me peace to go, you know, I see where their heart is coming from. When someone
Mm.
walked up to me and said, your child's never coming home. You just
Mm.
need to get over this and stop hoping.
Somebody said that to you?
Somebody said
Oh
that.
my gosh. That's a punch
But
in the
in that,
face.
I know, and you're just going,
It warrants it at least. A punch in
how could you say that to me? And yet
Yes.
people say it to us, as parents of missing children, they say it to us in that community all the time.
Wow.
And what they don't realize is for a lot of people that say that, they're saying it because one, they think that you haven't thought about this yet, that you are so blinded and so holding on to hope that you don't realize this could happen. So they think they're helping you.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, for a lot of people, especially those closest to you, they'll say things like that because it is hurting them to watch you hurt.
Wow.
And they just want you to stop hoping so that you'll stop hurting so they can stop hurting for you. And they
Mm-hmm.
really don't mean anything wrong by it. Neither of these people mean to hurt you. They just don't really realize it when they're saying it.
Wow. Wow. So how do you respond? What do you say? How do you unimaginable.
That's a great question. I just kind of went, oh, okay, and just kind of, left
Mm-hmm.
the conversation like, or we, we've thought of that, and just kind of move on because
Mm-hmm.
there really isn't anything to say in that moment. They will either just keep repeating it to you to make sure you understand it,
Mm-hmm.
or they will, if you try to have a discussion with them, it's just not going to work. So kind of
Right.
just deflecting and moving on. Those
Yes.
people have actually become some of our biggest supporters as time went on because
Really.
they got over that hump of, I'm tired of watching you hurt. And they ended up getting caught up in the hope and going
Wow.
along for the journey and being our greatest supporters.
Wow. So yeah, that leads me to my next question about support. How do you find your biggest supporters? Are they friends? Are they family members? Are they through online communities? Do you go to a community support group? Is it through your church? Where do you find the people who will lift you up and help you to keep hoping and, put action behind what you feel?
You can actually get them from a number of places. I know for us, we had a support system around us of just good friends and family who really just kind of came alongside and helped us through everything and continue to help us through everything. There are groups I actually went and checked out because I thought, I need to be able to point people in these directions. I went and
Mm-hmm.
checked out a group that is nationwide, and it's called Grief Share, and they
Mm-hmm.
have it in a lot of churches and nonprofits and stuff like that. And it's actually designed for people who have lost a loved one or a close family member or friend. And you go there to kind of work through the grief. And I wanted to see, is this applicable to people who still have a living child and are
Mm-hmm.
still working through grief? Because not having your child for 3 years, you're grieving every moment. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went to go see, and it was phenomenal. And I have to recommend it to everybody. Grief Share is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And it even applies to people who have people that are, missing from their lives, like missing children. And
Mm-hmm.
also, there are wonderful support groups. If you go on to Facebook and look up parental alienation, you will find tons of support groups for people living through very similar situations.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's unimaginable. I can't even imagine. What other than your book, you say you've written some other books. Tell me about those.
I have a book called God's Love for LGBTQI,
Mm-hmm.
and that just shares God's love with the LGBT community. I tend to write books that nobody else has written,
Mm.
and that was one that I just was like, there isn't something like that. There
Mm.
are books for the LGBT community by the LGBT community. There are books against the LGBT community by the non-LGBT community, but there's nothing from a straight Christian person that just says, hey, you're loved.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Awesome.
thought that needed to be written.
Yes. Yeah, it totally does. What other books have you written?
I also have a Bible study. It's just called 10-Day Bible Study, and it just gives people a really firm foundation in their faith.
Mm-hmm.
And that one has actually been translated also into modern Greek and is being used by missionaries on the island of Crete.
Oh, wow. So in
So,
case
yeah.
someone is looking for, they love this book, they find it helpful, they're giving it to someone, and they'd like to read other books by you, they can find all of your books on Amazon, or where should
Hmm.
they find your books?
They can definitely find them on Amazon. I do have an Amazon author page too that has all the books on it, but you can
Mm-hmm.
also find them on my website
Mm-hmm.
at mariewhiteauthor.com. And that's white spelled like the color. So it's
Mm-hmm.
mariewhiteauthor.com.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about this book in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have a book that I would be happy to give to your viewers for free. And it's
Mm-hmm.
called Changing Your Life in Just 10 Days.
Mm-hmm.
And over 10,000 people have read the book and loved it. And so it's on Amazon if you want to pay for it, or
Mm-hmm.
you can go to my website at mariewhiteauthor.com and get it for free.
Awesome. Thank you. You're an expert marketer. I find a lot of authors, they're great with words, but they struggle with the sales portion of it. But you know what you're doing. So what
I'm
brought you
learning.
what brought you to write professionally? What made you decide to do that?
I really just felt like there was a mission that I was supposed to be on.
Mm,
That there was this time where my life was totally different from having, a toddler in my home and in my life. And then, I mean, you have to think when a toddler is taken or a baby is taken from a family, whether it's by abduction or by alienation or whatever, that is a huge gaping hole. I mean, toddlers and babies take 24-hour care. I mean, all children do, but especially at that age, you're up in the middle of the night, you're potty training, you're doing whatever. That takes up my life. And we also had been foster parents for years and years. So we have our children, we have had our foster children, then we had the one, that has been taken. And so it's like all of a sudden everything got sucked out of our life except for our children. Like life just changed because of this event. We had to put everything else aside and just focus on the missing one. And so once everything's in play and you're working with the authorities and doing all that stuff, once that was all kind of going, there was just this emptiness of, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? And that's what I realized, that all the updates that I was sending out and the play-by-play that people were waiting for, and people, you haven't sent out an update, it's been 2 days or whatever, that had been preparing me to write professionally, and that there was a message that needed to be shared.
And so how long, again, have you been writing professionally?
For 3 years.
3 years. Wow. That's a journey. People come to things through a journey. What would you say, what's your process? Do you write every day? Do you only write when you have an update? Do you journal first and then sort it out? How do you go about writing your books? And do you know it's a book when you start writing, or do you just start writing and just put it into a book?
I know it's a book when I start writing. I used to do like a prayer journal, like I would write down, what I was praying for each night. I don't do that now because I don't have time. But these are all just, I mean, the book, God's Love for LGBTQI, I was literally walking past the computer and it was just like, boom, you need to write this book.
Wow.
And it was just, okay, that just became overwhelming. Okay, let me research. Is there something like that out there? Come on, somebody has got to have this idea already, like that kind of stuff. And the same thing with Strengths for Parents of Missing Children. It was like, surely someone has made something. And you go look it up and realize nobody has. And then it just becomes a total force of just constantly writing and writing and writing. I would like to, in my future books coming up, I have 2 more that I'm working on. I would like to do more of the outline and work on it that way. Right now, I just brain dump and then try to organize, and that is chaos.
Well, it works for you. So if it works for you, keep going. You know, writing is such a tough thing. Some people find it difficult to be disciplined enough to write enough to then have to curate it later and all of that. So the fact that you can just decide I'm writing a book and do it, that's a gift. That's a gift to be given. Not just the desire, but the ability. Yeah, that's really great. Okay, what else do you want to people to know about this? Not just the book, but the reason why you're writing it. This cause, I guess. What else do you want people to know about it?
Each day, at least one person commits suicide because they have a missing child. And 98% of children come home. So that means what are they coming home to? Nobody.
Wow.
And that's terrible. Wow. And in Australia, they're saying the numbers may be as high as 22 men per week who don't have access to their children who commit suicide.
Wow.
If I could just save one life, that would be enough for me, but I would love to see lives, I mean hundreds and thousands of lives that get a new perspective, that see one day that, I mean, the back of the book is made with the sun breaking through the clouds. So if this is sitting on someone's nightstand and it's 2 a.m. and they can't go on another moment and they don't know how they're going to make it to tomorrow, they're going to look over and be like, wait a second, it'll be okay. That is my goal with this book. And my goal with writing is to encourage other authors to discipline themselves. I mean, I get up at 5 a.m. every morning, whether I have to or not, and I write and I work on it and I market and I learn the business so that the things that I do, because I think they're important, get shared.
What a message. That is the message. Well, thank you so much, Marie, for reaching out. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you.
I'm convinced people say that people don't read. They do read. They just read a variety of things now, and it's just more of a challenge for authors and publishers to be heard amongst the clatter and the clamor of what's going on in society, because there's so much choice out there. There are
Yeah,
blogs, there are books, there are all sorts of things to read and listen to, but people do still read, and people still want information through writing of any kind, even through social media writing. Where can we find you on social media? Are you active?
absolutely. On Twitter, I'm at Marie Writes Book. So it's Marie Writes Book. And on Instagram, I'm at Marie White Author Official.
Okay.
And at the bottom of my website at mariewhiteauthor.com are all the social media links. Yeah, and
Excellent.
Nicole, I love what you're doing. Please keep it up.
Oh,
You have
thank
great
you.
quality work and you have a beautiful presence.
Thank you so much. I didn't know that anybody really cared about it. I truly just did it because I'm a nerd and I like books, and I didn't see a lot of people watching the videos. So I thought, I'm busy with my actual work that I do. I don't need to do this, until someone reached out to me on Facebook and said they'd watched a video, and they sent me like a story about how it affected them. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So even if 5 people watch it and it helps one person, it's worth it.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I know you're hitting a lot more people than five.
Well, okay, thank you. You're generous, but maybe five consistently. That would be great. So thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you,
so
Nicole. I
much.
appreciate it.
Yes.
And if you're one of the 5, thank you for listening. Leave a comment below or leave a review on Stitcher, iTunes, or wherever you're listening to the podcast. This episode of the Leopard Lit podcast is brought to you by BLPR Digital Strategies. BLPR is a full-service digital marketing and public relations agency. Promote your brand in the new digital world.